Hi guys, it's me Chazza HD and welcome to the first qualifying watch along of 2019 as it is now the start, finally, of the 2019 Formula 1 season here at the Australian Grand Prix, and I cannot wait to get this underway. I really cannot wait after watching practice 3, and by the way, we'll get into those results in a moment. After watching practice 3, we are set for a mega fight for pole position and a fantastic battle in the midfield. We are going to have one of the best qualifying sessions we've had at Melbourne for quite a long time, and I cannot wait for that to start in an hour's time. But hopefully you guys, no matter where you're watching in the world, whether it is late at night, early in the morning, middle of the afternoon, wherever you are, hopefully you are doing well. And also thank you for coming along at this time in the morning, because well, if you are, at the same time zone as me, it's currently 5 a.m. in the UK. Thanks for the dedication, because, to get up at this time is a hard thing to do. It's a pretty hard thing to do, and I do admire your dedication for coming along, and hopefully you are all doing well. But before I get into previewing how I think the teams are going to do in qualifying today, let's first take a look at the results of practice 3, which ended about 1 hour ago. So let's now get into the top 10. So Lewis Hamilton was fastest, from Sebastian Vettel in second. Charles Leclerc was in third. Then Grosjean was fourth, from Magnussen in fifth. Then Gasly was sixth. Bottas was seventh. Kvyat was eighth. Verstappen was ninth. And Daniel Ricciardo was in P10. And then your bottom 10 is Hülkenberg, Giovinazzi, Sainz, Perez, Albon, Stroll, Raikkonen, Norris, and of course, Russell and Kubica, the two Williams drivers. Very, very interesting practice 3, especially at the top. And let's start at the top as we preview what's going to happen in qualifying today. Starting off with the world champions, Mercedes. They are looking a lot better than I think some people were expecting. Australia does tend to be one of their best tracks on the calendar because of how fast it is, and as we know, the Mercedes car on the really fast tracks like Melbourne or a track like Suzuka, they do tend to be very, very quick. And that's exactly what they are at the moment. And honestly, right now, I wouldn't be surprised if we had a silver arrow car on pole position. I think it will be a tight fight at the top, but I think they really do have the car to get on pole position. I don't think we're going to see, say, Lewis Hamilton, if he does get pole. I don't think we're going to see him on pole by 7 or 8 tenths of a second like he was this time last year. But I think they are definitely in the fight for pole position. And it's definitely a two-way fight between Mercedes and Ferrari. Red Bull are not in the fight for pole position. They might actually, Red Bull, be in the fight to not be behind a midfield runner in qualifying. More on that in a moment. But yeah, the fight for pole is between Mercedes and Ferrari. No doubt about it. And talking of Ferrari, let's go on to them now. So Ferrari in practice 3 showed a lot more of what they could do. And the car does look good, but it just doesn't seem to have that raw mechanical grip as the Mercedes car does around this track. And again, the Mercedes does tend to have better results around this track because of the way the track is. But the Ferrari just doesn't seem to have enough speed, especially in the final sector of the track. In the middle sector of the track, the Ferrari does seem to be the fastest. That's where the most amount of, I think that's the sector where power is most important at this track. So I guess you could argue that Ferrari definitely do have the best power unit, but in terms of overall grip around the track, it doesn't seem as though Ferrari are as quick as we thought they would be, or as maybe they should be. They're definitely in the fight for pole position, But their fight for pole is going to be a lot tougher than I think they were expecting at the first Grand Prix. And it will be very close between this man, Sebastian Vettel, and of course, Lewis Hamilton. Moving on to Red Bull though, even though they didn't really go for lap times that much in practice 3, and they didn't really start pushing until the end of practice 3. They didn't really seem to be that quick when they actually did start pushing. Again, they were running the medium tyres quite a lot in the first half or most of the session. But in the final 15 minutes when they did finally start to push, they didn't actually seem to be that quick. I don't think they will at all be in the fight for pole position. They don't have a good enough car around here. I think that is to do with the way the track is, and also I don't think the Honda power unit can compete in qualifying mode with Ferrari and Mercedes. And looking at practice 3, they might actually have a fight to stay ahead of Haas. And you know, when getting that third row lockout on the grid, I think Red Bull will lock out the third row. I think they definitely will. But Haas in practice 3 were very, very competitive, and as Nib, who is at the track this weekend, has been saying, the Haas car looks very, very good, and it did also in practice 3 this morning. So, I think they will get a third row start, but I don't think they will be massively ahead of the midfield or the front of the midfield teams like Haas, Alfa Romeo, and Renault. I think they will get the third row, but I don't think there will be a massive gap between them and, say, the fourth row of the grid. But before I go into the midfield and preview how they are going to do, guys, let me know in the chat, what do you expect from Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull in qualifying? I'm not going to ask who you think will get pole position, because we'll do that later on as I'll get into my predictions for qualifying. But pace-wise, who do you think is looking better than the other teams? So, for example, who do you think is looking better out of Mercedes and Ferrari? Do you think Red Bull will compete for pole? I don't think they possibly can. And also, do you think a midfield team could maybe compete with Red Bull in qualifying? Let me know in the live chat right now, and I will try to read through as many comments as I can, and then we will go on to the midfield. So, let me take a look at what you guys are saying. Raghav Gupta says Red Bull will still be third fastest. Yep, they definitely will. That's the best they can hope for, in my opinion. Tomate asks, hey guys, qualifying is in 50 minutes. Yes, it is. Qualifying is in 51 minutes. So it is coming up. The Nightmare Maldonado asks, did Red Bull change the chassis? Yes, they did. They changed Max Verstappen's chassis. That does not incur a penalty, but they did do that to his car. Mike Brown says he is shocked by Haas. I'm shocked of how good they were looking this morning in practice 3, but I wouldn't say I'm massively shocked. I guess I'm kind of shocked by Haas. Otomate says, I think Mercedes is better here and Ferrari will be within 1 to 2 tenths of a second. John Rad says Mercedes still the best car, for Vettel the best driver. I'm not sure about that, but that's just my opinion. Right, let me look at some more comments. Annette asks, why did they do that to Max's chassis? I don't know. I think they said there was an issue with it. I don't know what that issue is. Maybe he touched a wall, something like that, or he didn't like the feeling of it. I don't know, but that's what they have done. Um, Electro Knights says Mercedes are looking a little bit more competitive than the Ferrari, but I think Ferrari will shine in the race, not qualifying. Yeah, I think Ferrari are going to do better in the race because it's a more comfortable car to drive by the looks of it than the Mercedes. And for a race, you want a comfortable car to drive. You want to know what you have under you, and you don't want to be massively surprised in terms of the grip levels with your car. You want to have something that is very comfortable to drive for 60 or 70 laps. And I think the Ferrari and also the Red Bull is a lot more comfortable to drive, even if it is at this track not as fast on a qualifying lap. Right, let me look at a few more comments. Usman Khan says, would you recommend going for a 45-minute nap just before qualifying starts, Chaz? Nope, I wouldn't. I'd recommend you keep watching and yeah, join us in previewing qualifying. I have plenty to get through, and also I do have a couple of interesting talking points to go through that came up yesterday that I want to go through in this stream or in this build-up. Batboot says Mercedes by 0.3 of a second from Ferrari. Okay. Tomate says, I'm impressed with Red Bull. I thought they would drop because of Honda, but they still are third fastest. Well done. That's not really that big of an accomplishment because the Red Bull chassis is the best on the grid from what I've seen. You'd expect them to be third fastest at the very least. Right, let me find a couple more comments and then I will go on to the midfield. A very, very close, by the way, midfield. I cannot predict who is going to end up getting into Q3 out of the midfield or who's going to get eliminated in Q2 and Q1. Well, I can predict Williams, that's easy, but you know, the midfield, I can't predict that. It could be anything could happen in that midfield, and McLaren could, if their drivers get the lap right, could get into Q3. Don't know. Right, let me read a couple more comments. Sebastian says Ferrari will be quicker in the race. I think they will. And then I'm not going to pronounce that second name because I will destroy it and I don't want to do that. He says, I'm pretty sure Ferrari is still sandbagging. Don't be surprised if they are up by 0.2 or 0.3 of a second. Even if they are, if you look at the practice 3 results, they're still going to be right there with Hamilton. So it's going to be a close one. It's going to be a very, very close one. But I think now I will move on to the midfield. So starting off with Renault. Can I be honest with Renault? They don't seem to be that quick. To me, Haas look better than Renault, and I would say once they get a lap nailed down, Alfa Romeo, I think, are probably better. And at times, Toro Rosso are looking better. Renault are really disappointing me this weekend. Now, the car isn't bad. It's not a bad car. It does look like a good car, and I think they will be a lot better in the races in 2019 than they will be in qualifying, because Renault just tend to be better in races than they are in qualifying sessions. But pace-wise for qualifying, they don't look that impressive. In fact, they look about where they were for the first race of 2018. They look as though they're probably going to end up qualifying, in the back end of the top 10? I don't see them lining up on the 4th row unless they've been sandbagging the entire weekend. I don't see it. Their car just... And I said this during testing, and I even said this after I went and saw the second test all 4 days. their car, again, it's not a bad car, it is a good car, but it doesn't stand out. It doesn't really stand out as a car that is going to be really, really competitive in the midfield. So, not looking that great for Renault. I think they will get at least one car into Q3, but I don't think they will get... I'm not going to say they definitely won't get both cars into Q3, but I think the chances of them getting one car into Q3 is a lot higher than getting, both cars in. But yeah, there you go with Renault. Moving on to McLaren. McLaren seem to be about where they were in practice 2. They, at best, I think McLaren are going to end up in, say, 14th or 15th place. I don't think realistically they can get into Q3. But, again, as I said a minute ago, who knows if Carlos Sainz really bangs out a lap and other drivers make errors. You never know. But realistically, this team is going to be competing to get both cars into Q2. And that's not really progress. I think they will get one car into Q2. I'm not sure about Norris, who seems to be the slower driver this weekend. But yeah, not looking that great for McLaren. Maybe you could argue it's not a surprise, but yeah, not looking that great, to be honest. Moving on to Alfa Romeo. In this morning's session, they were pushing for sure, but they didn't seem to be pushing as hard as, say, Haas were. But also, it looked a bit difficult for their drivers to really get in a clean and quick lap in practice 3. But I still think when it comes down to, say, Q2 and the end of Q2, I think you will then see that this Alfa Romeo, once they do get the pace out of the car, it is a very, very quick car. So I think they will have a strong qualifying. I don't think they'll get both cars into Q3. But I think, say, with Kimi Räikkönen, I think he will be, say, 8th or 9th on the grid. I think that's about where Alfa Romeo can end up in qualifying, in my opinion. Maybe P7, but Haas, as I'll get onto in a moment, are looking very, very strong. And talking of Haas, let's go on to them now. Haas have been looking good all weekend, and it's no real surprise because this track does tend to be one of their best, if not their best track of the season. But yeah, in practice 3, their car was really looking very, very sharp and dynamic around some of the fast corners. For example, the fast chicane at turns number 11 and 12. It was looking brilliant compared to, say, the Renault. So I think Haas are going to have a very, very competitive qualifying. Can they get both cars into the top 10? I think they have the best chance out of any midfield team to do so. But I wouldn't say that they're definitely going to as of yet, because they haven't consistently proved this weekend that they do have, say, the best car in the midfield. But going into qualifying, after what has just happened in practice 3, they are looking the strongest going into qualifying, I would say. Very strong looking car, very quick looking car. Don't be surprised if Haas surprise us like they did in qualifying 1 year ago in 2018. Moving on now to Toro Rosso. Looking good with Danny Kvyat. Alexander Albon not so good. I think he was down in 15th place or something like that. But yeah, with Danny Kvyat, he was looking very, very sharp and was on it during practice 3. Was really dragging a lot of pace out of the Toro Rosso, and he ended up in P7, I think it was. And I've said this plenty of times with this car. I said it plenty of times in testing and also yesterday in the practice watch along. That once they get this car nailed down and make sure the car, of course, is pointing in the right direction, which is a bit hard with this car because it can be a bit snappy at times, especially on the rear end. Once they get the car nailed down, it does tend to be a very, very quick car. So this is probably going to be the dark horse car of the session. Definitely watch out for Toro Rosso. They really could spring a surprise. Moving on now to Racing Point. They're probably going to get a car. They're definitely going to get a car knocked out in Q1, I think. Whether they can get a car into Q2, that's going to be a bit of an ask, but I think they might be able to just about get, say, Stroll or Perez into Q2, but I don't think realistically, like McLaren, I don't think they can get into Q3. I don't think they are ready for that because this car just doesn't look anywhere near as good as a Haas, a Renault, or an Alfa Romeo. So I don't think they can get into Q3, but a success for them would be to get both cars into Q2. That is the absolute best that they can do. But realistically, I think they'll have one car knocked out in Q1 and then one car, say, finishing up in 14th or 15th in Q2. And then, of course, you have Williams, who are going to qualify at the back. But, guys, let me know with the midfield, before I move on to some interesting stories to do with yesterday's practice 2, leading also into qualifying that we need to watch out for. Let me know, who do you think out of the midfield is going to spring a surprise, and who do you think has the best car in the midfield? I will stress it is very hard to predict who has the best car in the midfield because they are so close. But if you can, try to pick a team that has the best car in the midfield. I would say right now it is probably Haas just. But I would not bet my money on Haas ending up being the fastest team or car out of the midfield. But I think it is just about Haas. But let me know, guys, right now in the chat, and I'll read through your comments as usual. But before I do, I just need to say, don't forget to subscribe, guys, for more content like this, as later on this morning, I will do a review of qualifying about, I don't know, 3 hours after the end of qualifying. And then I will be doing the race watch along for 4 hours straight tomorrow morning, starting at 4:10 in the morning UK time until 8 o'clock in the morning UK time. So don't forget to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you can click subscribe right there, or click on my channel name, go to my channel page and subscribe, and also hit the notifications bell for more content like this. But now, let's see what you guys think of the midfield, and let's see if you guys can actually predict who has the best car in the midfield, because I really can't predict who has the best car in the midfield. It's too hard. Right, let me have a look. Otomate says, I think Raikkonen will be on the B pole. So that's pole position in what? Formula 1.5 or Formula B, whatever you want to call it. But Renault will have the best car in the midfield. Okay, Russell Boom says Haas have the best car in the midfield. Simon Cragland also says Haas. Raghav Gupta says, I think Racing Point can be good, maybe a car in Q3. I think you are overrating their car. I don't think they can do that. I think they could sneak a point in the race if there is some chaos, but I don't think they can end up in the top 10 in qualifying. Nib is in the chat. That's great to see. He's actually at the track at the moment. He says, wind starting to pick up, tailwind down into turn 1. Interesting to hear. Also, I need to make this point clear for anyone watching who's new. If it sounds like I have a sore throat, it's because I do, and I've had a sore throat basically all week. I picked up some kind of illness or something like that. So sorry about that, but I'll try my best with, what I have. Justin says, Renault has the best car, but Haas will be fastest here. It's just Haas's track. Or this track for Haas has always been good. I think some people are saying that Williams is sandbagging. I really, really hope they are, but I don't think they are. I really don't think they are. Right, let me find some more comments. Right. Let me find... Mike Brown says McLaren are going backwards, not forwards. When it comes to whether they are making progress, I'm going to wait until Paul Ricard / Austria Silverstone area, say end of June, early July. I'm not going to say right now whether they are making progress because it's too early. We need to wait because, after the Spanish Grand Prix where teams bring all their updates, McLaren might improve. We don't know. And Nib says he is at turns number 1 and 2. Hopefully you do enjoy yourself, mate. Fat Boot says the Renault power unit and the Honda power unit are still way behind Mercedes and Ferrari. Yes, they are. That is absolutely correct. They are way behind. Jody says Lewis will take pole. Gotti says, I want to see what Kimi does in the Sauber. Correction, Alfa Romeo, but it is technically still Sauber in terms of the personnel. It's the same team, it's just with a different name, but it's Alfa Romeo, of course. Otomate says, I'm done with Williams. I hoped for them before pre-season, but I lost hype on them. They are just bad. Shame on them. I never really had any hope for them. I never really had any hope because with Martini leaving as a main sponsor, they were destined to get worse. So yeah. Right. Let me find a couple more comments and then I will move on to a very interesting topic that came up yesterday and we're going to be looking out for sure at the end of qualifying. So I'll go on to that in a moment. Justin says Kvyat is like Bottas, good but not good enough. Yeah, I see what you mean. I think Kvyat is very, very underrated, honestly. I think he is. Look at what he did at Red Bull against Daniel Ricciardo. Even though I think he finished ahead of Ricciardo in 2015 because Ricciardo had quite a bit more reliability issues, he still beat Daniel Ricciardo. He wasn't miles off like some people like to think. And had a podium before Ricciardo in 2016. He is a very good driver. And I really hope he has a strong season this season in a Toro Rosso car that right now is looking pretty good. And I think the last time he raced at Australia, he finished in P8, I think it was, in the race. Maybe P9. Right, let me find one more comment. And the final one is from Danny. If Renault don't destroy the midfield this year, there's something seriously wrong with their camp. A manufacturer team with a good budget should be miles ahead of the midfield. If Renault don't finish 4th in the Constructors, this season has been a catastrophic disaster for Renault. They have to finish 4th and be more dominant in finishing 4th. That is the goal. If they don't, well, if they still finish 4th, but it's the same way they did last year, it will be a success in terms of result. but in terms of the pace of the car, it won't really be a success because they've got to start closing the gap first to Red Bull. They have to. They absolutely have to. But now I'm going to move on to an interesting topic that I want to talk about, and that is about the surprising pace of the Mercedes car that was shown yesterday and also in practice 3. Now, after testing, and I did go, by the way, to the final 4 days of testing, if there are some people out there that don't know that, the Ferrari to me looked like the better car by a tenth or two, at most a quarter of a second. And I did not think Mercedes would be that competitive as they have been this weekend. Again, like they have been. I thought Ferrari would be very, very close to them on a consistent basis. And I thought it would be Ferrari being the favourites right now for pole ahead of Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes. But it does seem now to be Mercedes who are the favourites for pole. And after practice 2, this is what Sebastian Vettel had to say about the Silver Arrow car. And it really also, these quotes, I've got one also from Lewis Hamilton. These quotes show you the mind games that go on in Formula 1. They go on all the time, but these 2 quotes really show you what they're trying to do with their quotes. They're not just speaking to people, they're trying to push a message out there so that the rival reads it or listens to it and starts thinking in a certain way. So this is what Sebastian Vettel had to say. By the way, the source of this quote is from racefans.net. This is what he had to say. What was all their BS about, oh, we're in such bad shape and so on? I didn't understand that, to be honest. I don't know if it was just us struggling a bit today. That was yesterday that he said this, or also others. But as a matter of fact, I think they were in a league of their own. Maybe everyone else was struggling and then we can turn it around. Notice how in this quote he says, when he says that Mercedes were in a league of their own, notice how he says, but as a matter of fact. What that means is, factually, if you look at the gaps, they were in a league of their own, which is correct. But the reason he is saying that is because he knew at the time that Ferrari were holding back pace. And that's why he said, as a matter of fact, not for sure Mercedes are going to be on the front row of the grid for the Grand Prix. So you can see there the mind games he is trying to play by very quietly, putting that in there to, to show that, Ferrari have plenty more speed to come from their car. And now if we take a look at Lewis Hamilton's quote, this is what he had to say after yesterday and their strong pace. He said, the car feels like it's in a similar place to where it was in Barcelona, which is positive, coming to a different track. We got through our program really well. There were no issues on track. There's plenty of stuff that we can improve on, but this was not a bad start. What we have to do now is really study and analyze everything, as we always do on a Friday night. And again, there are a couple parts of that quote where you can see the mind games taking effect. For example, where he says, the car feels like it's in a similar place to where it was in Barcelona. Now, you guys will remember the famous quote of Lewis Hamilton coming out and saying that Ferrari were probably half a second ahead of Mercedes, which of course is not true. After watching the car for myself at testing, there was no way Ferrari were half a second faster at the absolute best. There was absolutely no way. So notice how he says that. And then he says, which is positive, coming to a different track. And then he talks about how they can definitely improve on that. So he's trying to really, I think, scare Ferrari into, or scare Sebastian Vettel, one of the two, into thinking that Mercedes are nowhere near their absolute potential with the speed of their car. And you can get, again, you can see the mind games there. And I want to make this point because it's become, in the past couple of years, with the battle in Ferrari and Mercedes and, testing times and practice times, this has become pretty evident to me. With these two teams, the reason they do what they do, whether that's sandbagging a lot or not sandbagging that much, they do it to send messages to their rival. That's all they're doing. The only time these two teams actually show how quick they are is in Q3 and at stages in a Grand Prix. When they don't have to show how quick they are, they don't, because they are playing mind games with each other. But the reason they do this, and the reason they're trying to both teams are trying to act like they're not that quick, to seem as though they're actually slower than the rival. The reason they're doing that is because, in terms of perception, it's better for you to lose when you're expected to lose than lose when you're expected to win. That's why they do this, because if you knew, like Red Bull did last year, most weekends, that they were not going to win the Grand Prix, it was better for them to lose because they weren't expected to win half the races or even quarter of the races that season, or in any season at the moment. With those two teams, the reason they try to look worse than they actually are is because, again, it's better to lose when you're not expected to win. Both of those teams are expected to win, so whenever they lose, it's a very bad thing. For Red Bull, you'll notice when they don't win a race, but they finish in second place, they still get praised for their pace or the performance of the car, stuff like that. And it shows you why they do what they do. And you need to just remember that quote that I've said when it comes to, public perception with the pace of your car and how quick you are and stuff like that. Because whenever these teams, Mercedes and Ferrari, talk about the pace of their car, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to look worse, so when they do lose, they can say, well, we weren't expected to win, they were quicker. That's why they do it. So please remember that whenever you see a quote from Lewis Hamilton saying Ferrari are ahead, or from Vettel saying Mercedes are ahead, they're trying to do that so when they lose, which does happen in Formula One, of course, there is only one winner, they don't look as bad. That is why they do it. But I think now I will move on from that. And also in the chat, let me know your thoughts on that and what you think about their quotes, so on and so forth. But now I want to move on to McLaren, because in testing, they didn't look that great, but they didn't look as bad as, well, they did look in practice too, in Melbourne and practice yesterday. And I really just want to talk about the pace of the McLaren, because it does seem a bit worrying to me, honestly. But they did have, McLaren, as I'll show now, they did have issues which led to quite a poor day of practice for that team. So this is a quote from Carlos Sainz, and again the source is from racefans.net. He said, a tricky Friday for us. We've had various issues in the car, especially in the second half, or the second session rather, coming from the engine and also coming a bit from the mechanical parts in the car. but still we managed to complete our program more or less just in time. So reliability affecting McLaren there, but the pace of the car really was a bit worrying, to be honest, because, you know, coming into this season, my thoughts about McLaren were, as long as they make progress, that is all that matters. And that's what my opinion is. As long as they make progress of the car in terms of pace, it has been a good enough season, because in 2018, they had the 9th fastest car / second slowest. And that is not good enough. But if they can progress on that, then it has been, you know, progress. That's all they need to focus on. But this weekend, after practice, it seems as though this team is really no different to where they were at the end of 2018. They are the second slowest, I think. I think Racing Point probably just about will have a faster car in the first few races, and McLaren have to try and develop well early on, because it does not look like that good of a car to me. And yeah, it just looks a bit worrying for McLaren. I expected something not massively better, because this is McLaren we are talking about. A team that is disappointed for years upon years upon years. But I expected them to not be, say, consistently around 15th and 16th place. I thought they would be maybe, I don't know, P12, something like that. But yeah, it seems as though to me, they haven't really made the progress we would have hoped for. I'm not going to, you know, massively criticize them yet, because they might start making progress once we get into the European part of 2019. But right now, they don't seem to be that much better than they were at the end of 2018, and they've got to improve, because if they don't, then they're going to end up like Williams eventually. Because if Williams leave the sport, then McLaren will be at the very back of the grid. So yeah, hopefully they can, you know, make progress as the season goes on. And I think they will. Not massive progress, but I think they will make some. But now, let's move on to my predictions for qualifying. Who do I think is going to take pole position, finish up in second place, and in third place for the 2019 Australian Grand Prix? Also, guys, make sure to put your predictions for qualifying in the chat right now, and I will read through as many as I can as we come up to the start of qualifying. And also, again, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as I will continue with the 2019 Australian Grand Prix content. For example, later on this morning, I will be doing a qualifying review, and then you've got the race watch along tomorrow for 4 hours long, then the race review on Monday, then a podcast on Tuesday with Nib, who is at the track. So don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there by clicking subscribe, or click on my channel name, go to my channel page, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. But for pole position, I am going for Lewis Hamilton, because he has finished on pole position 7 times at this track. That is a very, very impressive record. He has 5 pole positions in a row. I know the Mercedes car in 2014, 15 and 16 was dominant, but still that is very impressive. And today, he is looking for his 6th consecutive pole position at Melbourne. And I think with the pace of that car and the pace of him around this track, I just don't see how Vettel will have enough to beat Lewis Hamilton. Even if Ferrari can turn that car right up, I don't think they can beat Hamilton. But in second place will be Sebastian Vettel. I think Vettel is going to be at the absolute most a quarter of a second off. I think he'll probably end up being a 10th off Hamilton, and will probably have the better car for race day. But for qualifying, I just don't think Ferrari have a good enough car compared to what Mercedes have. I know I haven't gone for Bottas in second, but the reason I'm going for Vettel in second is because I think Vettel has done well this weekend and is doing the best he can with what he has. But I don't think it is quite as good as what Hamilton has right now. But I think it'll be second for Sebastian Vettel. But if he does get pole position, it will be his first pole position in Melbourne as a Ferrari driver. He has had 3 poles at Albert Park, but all as a Red Bull driver in 2010, 2011 and 2013. If he gets pole today, that will be his first pole position at this track as a Ferrari driver. Of course, he has won this race twice, but has not had a pole as a Ferrari driver at Albert Park. And in third place will be Charles Leclerc. The reason I'm going for Leclerc in third is because I do think Leclerc will do a better job than Bottas in qualifying. Bottas seems to be making some mistakes. So I think Charles Leclerc will end up in P3. It is, of course, his first race weekend at Ferrari, so the pressure is on a bit for Charles Leclerc. But if he does somehow get on pole position, it will, of course, be his first ever pole position in Formula 1. And it is possible if the Ferrari car is a lot better in qualifying than it was in practice 3. So if it is, you never know, he could end up getting pole position. But guys, those are my predictions for qualifying. That is what I think is going to happen. But let me know what you think will happen. Who do you think will be on pole, finishing second, third, and then if you want, you can predict the top 10. I only predict the top 3 because, you know, once you get into, say, 4th place, 5th place, 6th place, it does get a bit hard to predict. And I don't want it to go on forever, so I only do the top 3. But let me know, guys, what do you think is going to happen? Let me know in the live chat right now, and for the next 12 minutes before the start of qualifying, I will read out as many predictions as I possibly can. But right, let's now get into these predictions. So again, let me know in the chat, and I'll go through as many comments as I can. So, starting off with Russia, it says Hamilton on pole, Bottas second, Leclerc third, Vettel fourth, and Max Verstappen in P5. Raghav Gupta says Hamilton on pole, Vettel second, Bottas third, Leclerc fourth, Verstappen fifth, and Gasly in sixth. Jody says Lewis on pole from Vettel second, Bottas third, Leclerc fourth, and Verstappen fifth. Mike Brown, let me find his comment. There it is. Says I think Vettel's teammate will be second. Batboot says Hamilton on pole, Bottas second, third is Vettel fourth, Leclerc fifth, Verstappen. Electro Knights says Hamilton on pole, Vettel second, and Charles Leclerc third. Raghav Gupta says Kimi Raikkonen will get into Q3. I think he will. Toro Loco says he doesn't think Red Bull will make the third row. That's interesting. Who do you think will end up on the third row then? Right. Let me find some more comments or more predictions. Hello to Ultraman, who says I'm late. Don't worry, qualifying has not started yet. Still got another 10 minutes until the start. Right. Let me just look at some more comments. Benin, are they even driving yet? Nope, they're not. Still another 10 minutes until the start of qualifying. Russell Boom says Hamilton on pole, Leclerc second, and Sebastian Vettel in third. Junius, I think he means Bottas, not boats. On pole, Vettel second. That's interesting. So you're going for him on pole. Ishver says Haas for the third row. Toro Loco says Haas or Kimi, but that's just my fantasy. It would be great if they could, but I don't think realistically Haas will end up on the third row. It would be great if they could, though. It'd be fantastic if they could. Right. Let me find some more predictions if I can. I'm just trying to find. Toro Loco says Lewis by a fraction. I think he already made his prediction, but there you go. Arc X says Whiny Diva Hamilton will take pole. Prussia boats on pole. I think he means one of the Williams. Yeah, he probably does. Where McLaren, oh, someone's asking where will McLaren be? Most likely McLaren will end up qualifying, say 14th and 17th or 14th and 18th. I think that's the best they can hope for. I don't think they can get both cars into Q2. I think one into Q2 and one will get knocked out in Q1. Jody, what about Haas beating out Red Bull for qualifying? I don't think they can. I think that's a bit too much to ask. Unless the Ferrari has an amazing qualifying mode that just powers them onto the third row, I don't see how they can do that. I think it will be Red Bull because the Red Bull has so much grip. Right. And by the way, just to let you guys know what I do with the watch-alongs. So, I don't show live footage. That's for obvious reasons, because if I did, the whole channel would be copyrighted in about 10 seconds. What I do is a radio commentary, basically, and then I show as many pictures from the track as I can, and I do now have a running order that goes along the bottom of the screen, which I tested out yesterday and was not great, but it wasn't bad. I think it worked out pretty fine. So yeah, that's what we do for the watch-alongs. As qualifying starts in 7 minutes. 7 minutes until the start of qualifying. ASD says Hamilton on pole, Vettel second, Leclerc third. Sebastian says apparently Ferrari have been giving Haas more engine power to see what they're like. I don't know about that. Ishver says Vettel just missing out on pole by a fraction. Hopefully, I don't really care who gets pole, but I just want it to be a very close battle. I don't want it to be, you know, a quarter of a second or a third of a second. I want it to be within a tenth, realistically. Within a tenth of a second, that would be a very, very nice battle. So that is what I'm wanting from qualifying. Let me know what you guys want. Who do you want on pole or think is going to get pole position? As in a moment, I will get the running order started up. So, yeah, let me know in chat right now what you guys think. Ishva says it will be extremely close. I think it will at the top. In the midfield, though, it will be for sure extremely close. I'm not going to pronounce that person's name, but the person who just posted the most recent comment says Lewis on pole, Vettel second, and Bottas in third. Jody asks, what do you think the time will be for pole? It was a 22.2 in practice 3, so I think someone will dip into the 1 minute 20s. I'm going to say a 20.8. 1 minute 20.8. That's the pole position time I think it'll be. And yes, as Raghav Gupta says, 5 minutes to go as the F1 intro has started. So we are now officially 5 minutes away from the start of qualifying. And I will, in a moment, find the first picture to put on the screen. But guys, keep going in the chat. Let me know what you think is going to happen and how excited are you for the start of the season. This is basically the proper start of this season. We've waited a very, very long time for this. And finally, Formula One is back. So yeah, I cannot wait to get this going, as they're now going through the intro. So now I am going to, if I can, boot up the running order. So this running order, by the way, this is just a team by team thing. This is not the actual running order because qualifying has not started yet. So yeah, but I am actually quickly, I'm just going to test something quick. Actually, I'm not going to do it now. I'll try and do it tomorrow. I was going to try and put like a Q1 or Q2 thing in the top right or left, but I haven't actually remembered to do so. But I will try for tomorrow to put that in the top corner so you guys know when you join what is actually going on. But right, let me just quickly post this picture of the man who is, for me, the favourite for pole position. The favourite for pole position, in my opinion, because of his record around this track and because of the pace so far. For me, it is Lewis Hamilton. And I'll just quickly show you guys a picture of him arriving into the Mercedes garage. If I can find it. Let me try and find it quickly. Yeah, keep loading up that chat, guys. And here you go. It is, just lower that there. Here is Lewis Hamilton about to go out onto the track, as we are now 2 minutes away from the start of qualifying. I cannot wait to finally get this going. And by the way, I just want to let you guys know, with the the running order, I will try to update it as many times as I can, but I can't promise you it will be every 2 minutes. Whenever there's a break in the action, like, you know, when the cars go back into the pit lane after their first runs in Q1 or Q2 and Q3, I will try to update it then, but most likely they're going to be updated at least at the end of Q1, and then at the end of Q2, and then at the end of Q3. So that is what I'm going to try and do. But I will try to update it as much as I possibly can. Right. We are now 1 minute away from the start of qualifying. Who is going to be knocked out in Q1? Well, it's going to be the two Williams drivers. That is for sure. If they end up out into Q2, that'd be the biggest surprise in the history of Formula One. But getting knocked out in Q1, I'd have to say one of the Racing Points, and I think Lando Norris will get knocked out. But then after that, I don't know. But I think there will be a McLaren of Norris, and also a Racing Point getting knocked out in Q1. Let me know in the chat, guys. Who do you think will get knocked out in Q1? For me, it will be the two Williamses, Norris, a Racing Point, and then after that, I don't really know. As qualifying has officially started. Officially, it has started, and now we are going to get some cars out on the track. If you're new to Formula One, Q1 is 18 minutes long. So we've got 18 minutes of track action, and at the end of the 18 minutes, the 5 slowest cars will be knocked out, and then we go into Q2 with the next 5 are knocked out in Q2, and then a top 10 shootout in Q3. As Lando Norris is the first driver on track for qualifying in Melbourne. But let me quickly post this picture on the screen for you guys of a Ferrari. This is not a live picture, but it's a pretty good one of the Ferrari at work. And right, here we go. And then there. So there you can see Sebastian Vettel hard at work in that Ferrari earlier on. And I'm sure he'll be on the track in the next couple minutes. But yeah, right now on the track is Lando Norris and Robert Kubica. Can Kubica outqualify George Russell? Can Lando Norris outqualify Carlos Sainz? We are, in the next 16.5 minutes, set to find out. As the two Williamses are touring around the track, literally touring around the track. As Kubica is now in the middle sector. So Lando Norris will be the first driver to set a lap time in qualifying. As a lot of the drivers, well, 17 of them are still in the pit lane, not going out. I think they're waiting for Norris, Russell and Kubica to clean the track up because it has been a bit dirty in Australia today. Right, so is Norris going to start his lap? Yes, he does. He now starts his lap. Lando Norris is now going to take on this Albert Park circuit. And this is his first qualifying lap in Formula 1. As he goes through turns 1 and 2 nicely enough. And is pushing very, very hard. Down to turn 3. The McLaren turns in well enough. That was actually very good from Norris. And then it's turn 4. Looking good from Norris. I'm not sure this car has the speed, but they look pretty good. This lap looks pretty good. As he now comes up to turn number 9, I think this is, or number 8. And then now goes on this short curving straight towards the best corner or the best corners at this track. Turn 11 and 12. And the McLaren doesn't look bad, but not that great in those fast corners. Down into turn 13. McLaren looking pretty good in that. Turn 14. Looking okay, and then into the penultimate corner. He does not run wide. Very clean lap from Norris. And then into the final corner, looking good enough. And he does a 1 minute 24.6. So not that fast of a lap from Lando Norris. But that really just shows the pace of the McLaren. Not that quick, as Russell getting very out of shape in turn 4, but you'd expect that of that car because that car does look absolutely god awful. But right, let me just post this picture of Norris coming out onto the track at the start of qualifying, as those are Williams heading to the line, but I don't really care where they go. It's Russell who goes second, but he's only a second. Well, he's a second off Lando Norris. Here is Norris when he came out onto the track. There you go. That's the first driver on track for a qualifying session in 2019. But here is Sebastian Vettel. And this is his first lap in qualifying on the medium compound tyre, the yellow mark tyre. And how is this Ferrari looking? Good enough in turn 4. Turn 5 is an easy flat. And Vettel already 4/10 of a second up on Norris in the first sector on a harder compound of tyre. It really does show how good the Ferrari is compared to the McLaren. As we also have Kimi Raikkonen on a lap. So is Charles Leclerc, I think, as well. As Vettel goes through the middle sector. And it looks very comfortable to drive, but does it have the speed to get pole? I'm not sure it does, but we'll see later on. He runs wide at turn 13. That will cost him a tenth or two. Turn 14 looks absolutely fine. And then the penultimate corner looks all good. And the final corner is basically perfect. And now he comes to the line and does a 1:23.8. That is not a great lap on those tyres, to be honest. I would have expected him to go 2 or 3 tenths faster, and he can definitely do a better lap than that. As Kimi Raikkonen on the soft tyre now comes to the line and will go fastest on a 1:23.4. That's a very quick lap by Kimi Raikkonen. Charles Leclerc on the medium goes fastest at 23.3. So yeah, Vettel can improve. Giovinazzi goes second, also at 23.3. Only 7 thousandths of a second slower than Charles Leclerc. Here comes Danny Kvyat on his return to Formula 1. And he goes fastest. So very, very competitive at the top of the timesheets, but we still have plenty of cars on outlaps and plenty of cars that have not set a lap time. So with the running order at the bottom, I will update it once we actually have a proper running order, because only 9 out of the 20 cars have set a lap time, as Lewis Hamilton now sets his first lap in qualifying on the red marked soft compound tyre, the softest compound at this Grand Prix. And that Mercedes in turns 1 and 2 looked mega, absolutely mega, as he now breaks down into turn 3. Bit of turn in here for turn 4. Car looking good. Kvyat is currently fastest, but he won't be fastest for long, as Lewis Hamilton already 3/10 of a second up on Kvyat in the first sector on the same compound of tyres. And into that bumpy corner, looks absolutely fine. Has to now pass this slow, I think it's Alexander Albon in the Toro Rosso. Middle sector is good, but Kvyat's was very good, because Kvyat was only 2.5 tenths slower, as Bottas is on a very good lap. As Hamilton is now into the final sector, turn 14. That car looks very, very quick in the fast corners. Penultimate corner, absolutely fine. There is a slow car ahead, but that won't affect him, as he now comes to the line. He'll actually get a slipstream down to the start-finish line. And he does go fastest on a 22.6, but it wasn't actually that quick. Bottas goes fastest by 23 hundredths of a second. But yeah, not that quick from Mercedes, if I'm going to be honest. As Sergio Perez goes up to third on a 22.9. That is a very impressive lap by Perez. Where has that pace been this weekend? As now we have a Red Bull here. Who is it? I don't know who it is. It is Max Verstappen, as Sebastian Vettel improves up to P3. And Verstappen is now through turns 14. He ran a bit wide there. That's going to compromise his run into the penultimate corner. And now swings it into the final corner. Opens the DRS. And he is probably going to end up in 4th. No, ends up in P6. Either the midfield is very close, or a lot closer than we thought, or the top teams are really, really sandbagging with their power. Because you've got Perez Only 3/10 slower than the Mercedes on the same tyres. Hulkenberg, 3/10 slower. Kvyat, only half a second. Very, very competitive, if I may say. As this is Daniel Ricciardo now on his first qualifying attempt. So once he sets a lap and Grosjean and Magnussen do, I will then update the running order with what the order actually is. As Ricciardo now goes through now is into turn 3, overtaking a slow Toro Rosso there. Let me just quickly put this picture up of the Red Bull. And Ricciardo's lap looking good enough so far, I would say. There you go. And he now is coming up to this bumpy turn number 9. And looking okay so far, I think. And here comes Ricciardo, middle sector. They're not actually showing what his sector times are, which is a bit annoying. As he now is coming up to turn number 13. He's passing many slow cars. And someone just pointed out in the chat, and it's true, Norris is very fast. He just went P8. That's an incredible lap. And Magnussen's done the fastest middle sector. As Daniel Ricciardo now heads to the line and does a 1:23.1 and goes P7. A Red Bull just crossed the line there. Magnussen has made an error and gone 15th. There's no way he's that slow. And Romain Grosjean has gone up to P5. Right. I am now going to update the order because everyone's set a lap now. I think they're all now going to pit. Because, that's what happened. Magnussen ran wide at the penultimate corner onto the grass. But that still was good enough to get him in so far into Q2. That shows how quick the Haas car is or can be. As Verstappen is on another lap, so I will wait until this lap is done. He's only a quarter of a second down on Bottas. So at the moment, and by the way, Bottas has improved to a 22.3, so Bottas looking very competitive. Max Verstappen is currently P9, but he won't be for very much longer as he swings it into turn 14. Now into the penultimate corner. Bit of understeer there. To me, it looks like I've noticed this weekend. The Red Bull seems to have a lot of understeer in the high-speed corners as Max goes P3. But I will add the two Ferraris who are 4th and 12th are on mediums. Right, so Max is in 3rd as Lewis Hamilton on the fastest compound is about to go faster than Valtteri Bottas. And here he goes. Yeah, a 1:22 flat. And that is a very quick one. That's the quickest lap this weekend. Right, so quickly, I am going to update the order unless the drivers want to continue doing fast lap after fast lap and ruining that. But I'm now going to quickly, if I can, update this order whilst most people are in the pit lane. So bear with me as I just quickly do that. As Bottas is on another hot lap. So we'll see where he goes on that lap. And he's looking pretty good so far on his lap. No dramas like he'd had in qualifying last year, but that of course happened in Q3. Right. By the way, Lando Norris, P10. That's a very impressive start, but of course, Q1 has not ended. But this is going to be a very, very manic end to qualifying. because the drivers are so close on lap time. For example, you've got the Alfa Romeos back there in 13th and 14th. That is rather worrying, if you ask me. And Magnussen is now in the drop zone, as I just complete the order very quickly, as Bottas, I don't think is going to go fastest. Let me see. No, he's not going to go fastest at all. So, Magnussen, then Stroll. Stroll and Albon not looking that good. So, Stroll and then Alexander Albon. So that is your order right now. The order along the bottom is your order for approximately another 90 seconds. So I cannot wait for that to be absolutely destroyed. I'll now, though, get, if I can, another picture on the screen for you guys. But the most impressive performance so far is Sergio Perez in P5. That is a fantastic effort so far. And Lance Stroll, who is now attempting to get into Q2, he has to now show how good he can be, because he can't allow Perez to do that when he is in P17 as it stands. Let me just quickly get this on the screen of Valtteri Bottas. But we have plenty of people on their outlaps. The only people in the pits are Hamilton, Verstappen and Vettel at the moment. So let me just get this on the screen quick. As Norris has done a pretty good first sector. There you go. That is Valtteri Bottas, who is now in second place and has just pitted. Stroll has not improved his middle sector. That's going to cost him. Norris, by the way, has improved his middle sector and is only 3.5 tenths behind Lewis Hamilton so far on this lap. As Lance Stroll swings it into the final corner, opens the DRS and the DRS gap, which is bigger for this year. And Stroll goes into P8. That is very impressive. As now Lando Norris, who is in P11, I think is about to set a very, very good lap. He does. He goes P3. Great effort there by Lando Norris. That is great. As Kimi Raikkonen now comes to the line, he's got to improve. He does, up to P8 from P15. Carlos Sainz is in the drop zone. Not anymore. He's now P12. Antonio Giovinazzi is now P3 in the Alfa Romeo. This is incredible. Charles Leclerc's on a very fast lap as Danny Kvyat now goes P4. Charles Leclerc is about to absolutely smash Lewis Hamilton's lap time apart. As he now heads to the line, and Charles Leclerc, he doesn't smash it apart, but he does go fastest. Kevin Magnussen goes P6. Daniel Ricciardo is in the drop zone, as George Russell is 19th. Daniel Ricciardo only P12. Gasly's in the drop zone. Albon 9th. So Stroll, Sainz and Russell and Kubica are definitely out. By the way, Kevin Magnussen and Sergio Perez are under investigation for an unsafe release. But where is Pierre Gasly? He has to be on a lap. There's no way Pierre Gasly has just been knocked out of qualifying 1. Or has he? There's no way Gasly has ended up 17th. There's no way that has actually happened. No way. As Kubica has touched the wall there. And I think broken his car. So Robert has played a bit too much there with the wall at turn 10. Yep, did what Valtteri Bottas did in 2014. Smacked the outside of the wall with his front tyre. And yeah, oh, it was a puncture then on the right rear. I'd rather not see this right now because I want to see if Pierre Gasly is out of qualifying. Because if he is, that is a terrible performance. He is out of qualifying. Pierre Gasly in the Red Bull Honda has qualified in 17th place. That is terrible. Absolutely terrible. How can you qualify 17th in a Red Bull? He's basically starting where he did last year in a Toro Rosso. That's incredible. 2019 already bringing us surprises. Wow, that is amazing. So out of Q1, Lance Stroll, Pierre Gasly in the Red Bull, Carlos Sainz, and then Russell and Kubica in the Williams. Kimi Raikkonen barely gets through. And by the way, I will add that Gasly and Sainz, who are 17th and 18th, were only a second off Charles Leclerc's time. But still, Pierre Gasly should not be knocked out in Q1 in a car that could end up on the podium on Saturday. Or on Sunday, sorry. But that is an absolutely terrible performance by Gasly. He hasn't been that good this weekend, but that is not going to go down well with his bosses. That is not going to go down well. You cannot qualify that low down in a car that should be on the third row of the grid. But interesting to note, the amount of midfield cars that are right there. If it's like that in Q3, then I don't even know if I'll have a throat by 8 o'clock this morning. Right, let me quickly just put this picture on the screen and then do that. That is Lewis Hamilton, who ended up second fastest. And there you go. But yeah, that is... Wow, I did not see that coming. That is one big shock. So that means there is a midfield team that is going to end up on the third row of the grid. Who is it going to be? Interesting. Very, very interesting. McLaren, by the way, have got a car into Q2. Norris, who ended up in Q1 in 8th place. Carlos Sainz ended up 18th. That's very embarrassing for Carlos Sainz. But yeah, that is a very, very surprising way to start. And the big teams, I'm going to tell you now, the big teams better hope that they're sandbagging. Because if they're not, then we are going to have a very, very just panicky harem-scarum Q2. Because the gap between 18th and 1st was only 1 second. That's reminiscent of the days of, 2009. But yeah, that is incredible. But when it comes to the order of Q1, I will post that in just a moment. I'm not going to... Actually, I will quickly update the order of who's got knocked out in Q1, but I will post an actual graphic that I have found from Twitter in just a moment as to who finished where in Q1 that wasn't in the drop zone. But I will just quickly update the 16th to 20th places. And then you add, who did you add? You had Raikkonen, who was 15th. I'm struggling to remember who was actually finishing where in Q1 because it was so just manic. And then I think it was Ricciardo. I tell you again, Renault not that quick. They have got a real fight on their hands if they want to end up in the Q3. But I think I said it at the top of the show. It's going to come down to whether you can nail the lap. If you can, you will be rewarded. If you can't, as you've seen with Pierre Gasly, then yeah, you're not going to fare well. You're going to end up qualifying about 10 spots lower than you should. Right, I'm just going to complete this order quickly. Now getting into the top 10. By the way, this is the order I'm posting now. This is the order from Q1. So I've almost finished it. Give me a second. But yeah, that is exactly what we want in 2019, as Hamilton and Vettel are now on the track. As hold on a minute, let me just post these final Q1 results. So Giovinazzi there, and then Bottas was in third, and Hamilton was second, and then Charles Leclerc entered Q1 fastest of all, and Sebastian Vettel was only in P11. He obviously cannot do that in this session, or else he'll be starting in the midfield. But there you go, that is the order. Running along the bottom is the official order of qualifying 1. So there you go. But we are now in Q2. The Q2 has now started. So now 14 minutes or now 13 minutes of Q2. And if you finish outside of the top 10 by the end of the 13 minutes, you are out of Q2 and you cannot compete in the top 10 shootout, which is Q3. But now let's see how fast the top teams can go, because what's very good is because of the close gap between them and the midfield, they cannot go on the harder compound, because if they do, they'll be out of qualifying. As Lewis Hamilton now starts his first lap in Q2 and charges down to turn 1. The Mercedes looking very, very good, and I presume I presume that Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull will have turned their power units up to the absolute max, as Hamilton has to pass traffic, which is Alexander Albon. And now Hamilton has, who's he have ahead of him? Giovinazzi, I think it is. Or no, or is it Giovinazzi? No, it's Kimi Raikkonen. Oh no, it is Giovinazzi. Lewis Hamilton now on his first lap in Q2. I don't know the sector times because FOM's graphics have just completely effed up. So I don't know if Hamilton is actually going that fast or not. It says that Leclerc has done a fastest second sector. But here comes Lewis Hamilton around turn 14. Traffic on the inside. He'll pass that. I think it was a Renault. And Lewis Hamilton locks the left front. That he'll have to do another lap on a different set of tyres, because that will not be good for the Grand Prix. And Hamilton does a 21.8. That is not good enough on that compound. That's not good enough. As Sebastian Vettel is going to go fastest, surely, unless he's made a mistake. Sebastian Vettel, no, he goes second at 21.9. Albon has started his lap. Charles Leclerc goes fastest at 1:21.7. Game on at the top. But Binotto shakes his head. So obviously he knows something that we don't. As Valtteri Bottas comes into the penultimate corner, turns in, it meets the exact point he wanted it to meet. And he ran slightly wide at the final corner, but where does Valtteri Bottas go? He goes fastest on a 1:21.2. What a lap by Bottas. He's been on fire this weekend. A 21.2. He has absolutely hit it out of the park. And who is this? This is Hulkenberg on a lap. Oh, locks the left front just like Lewis Hamilton, but just about makes the corner. Where will he go? Kimi Raikkonen has gone fifth on a 22.3. That's not that good. And Hulkenberg's done a 22.5, but those laps don't seem to me to be that quick, if I'm being honest. But yeah, that was a very, very good lap by Bottas. This is now the Haas of Kevin Magnussen on his first lap in Q2. And he is now at the end of the first sector. As we've still got, another 6 drivers yet to set a lap. As Magnussen now comes through turn 10 where Kubica hit the wall. And now he comes up to the end of the middle sector. Oh, that Haas looks very, very nice. As Ricciardo goes P7 behind Hülkenberg, which is interesting. Magnussen and Grosjean and Perez on a lap. Verstappen is on an outlap. As Magnussen now comes through the final corner, opens the DRS. Where will Kevin Magnussen go? 6th place. That's good. That's a good position for Kevin Magnussen. As Günther Steiner looks on. Now let's see where Grosjean goes, as he is now coming down to turn 13. And looking good with the Haas there, looking very good. Turns in very nicely into turn 14. Oh, oversteer. He's completely blown the lap there. A lot of oversteer into the penultimate corner, and Grosjean will not set a lap time. I think that's good enough to get him out the drop zone. Oh, he does. He goes up to P9, but he'll have to do another lap because that was a lot of oversteer into the penultimate corner. That corner is proving to be very tricky for the drivers, as Sergio Perez, the only racing point in Q2, now comes to the line. Where will he go? 9th. Pretty good. So now the 2 Toro Rossos are in the drop zone. Max Verstappen is now on a lap. And he's probably going to go up to P5 with this lap. I can't imagine him going slower. Verstappen now comes into the tricky penultimate corner. Looks fine enough. Again, the Red Bull has understeer in the fast corners. I don't know why that is, but now Max Verstappen goes P2. P2 for Max Verstappen. Game on. I'm really loving this qualifying session. We are getting a very unusual order at the moment. So quickly, I am going to do the order for what it is right now in Q2 before the final run in Q2. So bear with me as I do that. Yeah, the Red Bull, to me, from what I've seen, the Red Bull looks as though it has high-speed understeer. I don't know why that is, but that's what it looks like to me. It looks like it has a bit of high-speed understeer, and they need to fix that. Because I don't think it is Max Verstappen's line of him just deliberately running wide at fast corners, or wider than you would normally want to go. Right. Let me get this finished. You got Raikkonen in 6th. Magnussen is in 7th. Magnussen again doing well at Albert Park. Oh, Giovinazzi almost destroying the Alfa Romeo. Don't do that to that beautiful looking car. And then you've got Hülkenberg in 8th. Daniel Ricciardo 9th. And then Sergio Perez in P10. So goodbye Perez. And then you got Grosjean in P11. That lap was never good enough to get into Q3. He'll have to go again, as there's now 5 minutes to go. Surprisingly, the 2 Toro Rossos are in 12th and 13th. I thought they would have been a bit better than that, but they're not. And then you have Antonio Giovinazzi in 15th, or 14th, sorry. after that mistake on his fastest lap. And then Lando Norris is 15th, and that's to be expected. So that is the order scrolling along the bottom. That is the actual order as we now go into the final run of Q2. There are about 9 drivers that need to go out and do a lap, because a lot of them haven't set a lap time that is safe enough. Right. Let me quickly get up a different picture. Same part of the track down into turn 3. But it's a different picture this time of Charles Leclerc, who is in P3 in Q2. So there you go. The beautiful looking Ferrari there. Yeah, P3 for Leclerc, P5 for Vettel. Qualifying is going a lot differently compared to what I thought it would be like at this, at this time. I thought Ferrari would be the ones right at the top, but Bottas on a 1:21.2. That is one hell of a lap. Lewis Hamilton comes out again. He has to. The lockup he had on his tyres, he doesn't want to have that for the race because, yeah, he doesn't want his teeth to be rattled out of his mouth. Right, so in the knockout zone, with 3 minutes to go of Q2 as everyone piles onto the track for the final run, is Grosjean, Kvyat, Albon, Giovinazzi and Norris. Let me know in the chat, guys, who will get out of Q2 in those, or out of those drivers. I think Grosjean will get into Q2, or Q3, sorry. If anyone else gets through, though, we're going to have a big name, or a bigger name, knocked out. So we're going to have someone disappointed here. Right. So, 2 minutes to go to the end of Q2. Then going very slowly on their outlaps so they don't destroy their tyres. So they have the best tyre life for their lap, because they don't want to get to the end of their laps and have no grip because the tyres have gone away. As Max Verstappen has now come onto the track. He doesn't really need to, but he's going to anyway. BM says Ricciardo doing well. I'd have to disagree. P9 is not a position you want to be in at the end of Q2. Well, not right at the end, but, going into the final lap. You want to be, say, P6, where Kimi Räikkönen is, as Kevin Magnussen starts his final lap in Q2. He's currently in P7. If he improves, then he is most likely going to end up in the top 10 shootout. And by the way, Michael, note Ferrari were not on the yellow tyres. Everyone is on the soft and has done their lap times on the red mark soft. As Magnussen now comes up to the end of the first sector and does a 27.3. That's an improvement on his first sector time from his earlier lap in Q2. Magnussen now into turn 9. Through turn 10, Lewis Hamilton, by the way, has done a fastest first sector. Magnussen, only 0.6 down on Bottas at the middle sector point, as he now comes down to turn 13. And the Haas not looking, say, as good as the Mercedes, Ferrari or Red Bull, but looking good enough as he now comes into the penultimate corner, and that is good. And the final corner is good from K-Mag, opens the DRS and will now confirm his position. Yep, P6, and that should be good enough for Q3 as Lewis Hamilton comes to the line and smashes Bottas's time with a 21 flat. Romain Grosjean goes P5. That's a very, very strong lap. By the way, Lewis Hamilton's lap is a new track record, a 21.0, as Norris goes P9 in the McLaren. Raikkonen is P8 and hasn't improved. He's in trouble. Giovinazzi is in trouble because he's done his lap and he's not going to get into Q3. Ricciardo is P11. Kvyat, no, not good enough. Kvyat's 14th. Ricciardo's out in P11. Bottas improves to a 21.1. Albon goes P12. Sergio Perez is the only one who can get out of the drop zone, and he goes P10. So Hulkenberg's in the drop zone. Where's Hulkenberg? That would be a terrible start for Renault if both cars are out in the drop zone. Where is Hulkenberg? I think Hulkenberg is not going to complete a lap. So both Renaults are out in Q2. That is a disaster. Lando Norris is in Q3. The driver of Q3, or driver of qualifying, sorry, so far is Lando Norris. First qualifying of his career, and he's so far P9 going into Q3. What a performance. But out in qualifying 2 are the 2 Renaults of Hulkenberg and Ricciardo. By the way, Hulkenberg outqualifies Ricciardo by 8 thousandths of a second. And then Albon is 13th. I guess that's good enough because he's outqualified Kvyat, who has disappointedly ended up in 15th. Then Giovinazzi, very disappointing, in P14. But Lando Norris, P9, he deserves a big pat on the back. What a performance. That is their first Q3 appearance, McLaren, at Australia since Kevin Magnussen at the 2014 Australian Grand Prix, and he got a podium. I'm not saying they're going to, but that's the best qualifying that team has had since 2014 at this track. Very, very impressive. But Hulkenberg, Ricciardo, Albon, Giovinazzi and Kvyat all out, and that is a surprise, I think. I didn't think both Renaults would go out. That is a surprise. As replay of Vettel in turn 11 and 12. Oh, he's taken a risk, Sebastian Vettel, on the exit of 12. Oh, he's so lucky. He is so lucky he didn't crash that. He could have absolutely wiped his car to smithereens. Right, let me quickly do the order at the end of Q2. And then we'll get into Q3. By the way, just to let you guys know, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as I will be doing a review of qualifying at, say, 10 a.m. or 10:30 a.m. UK time. So don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there by clicking subscribe, or click on my channel name, go to my channel page and subscribe. But let me just quickly do this order. So Hamilton was fastest from Bottas, and then Verstappen, I believe, and then Leclerc, then Grosjean, then Vettel. Vettel's had a bit of a scruffy session, a scruffy-ish weekend, even though he has been up to that, up to the point of qualifying, the better driver. So that's a bit surprising. So yeah, Leclerc 4th, Grosjean is in 5th, but I have to say Mercedes are the favourites for pole, no doubt about it. Their pace looks so strong, and that is worrying for Ferrari, considering all the pre-season talk. So Magnussen, I think, was in P7. Yeah, he was. And then Raikkonen was P8, Norris was P9, and Perez was P10. So there you go. The order running along the bottom is the order at the end of Q2. Qualifying has been pretty fun, but we still have the shootout at the end of qualifying. And, well, I cannot wait. Right, let me just quickly post this picture. It's a far-ish distance shot of the Renault heading towards the line and not making it in. I think it was Daniel Ricciardo on this picture. So let me get that up quick. And here you go. And then let me quickly fiddle around with it. Like so. So there you go. That's Ricciardo and the Renault heading to the line, and it was, well, only good enough for P12. He didn't actually improve on his lap. That is, for Renault, that's not good enough. That is not good enough. And here is actually, actually I won't post that because we need to start posting pictures of the top 10 runners in a moment, so I'll leave that till later. But there you go. Q1 and Q2 are done. But we, of course, have the top 10 shootout. I cannot wait for this. We have a very, very competitive top 5. Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel, Leclerc, Verstappen. And then the midfield, Raikkonen, Magnussen, Grosjean, Perez, and maybe Norris can get in there. This is going to be a very good top 10 shootout. Make sure you buckle up. This is going to be a very, very exciting one. Right. Let's read out some comments before we get into Q3 because there's about a 2-minute wait. Nib, who's at the track, says, disappointing with Ricciardo, absolutely. I think more so Renault, because if it was a Ricciardo issue, then Hülkenberg would have probably been in the top 10, but both Renaults out in P11 and P12. That clearly shows that the Renault car just isn't quick enough at this stage. I think the Renault car, to me, looks like it's the 6th fastest car right now. It looks slower than the Alfa Romeo. I know Giovinazzi's in 14th, but he has made a lot of mistakes. But, you know, look at Kimi Raikkonen, and then you've got the 2 Haas's. So Renault have work to do. They cannot afford to be in that position all season. They've got to improve. And they should do. But whether they will, well, that's a matter for a different day. But now, Q3 has started. So we now have 12 minutes of Q3. You need to Formula 1. 12 minutes of Q3. And it's simple. At the end of Q3, we have the final top 10 decided. And this is the most exciting part because it is the shootout pole position. And I cannot wait to see what goes down here. I think we are going to get a very competitive battle at the top. But before I get into commentating on that, as Magnussen is the first driver to come out, let me quickly post a picture of the first McLaren to get into Q3 at this track since 2014. Let me quickly post that because he deserves to be shown during the stream after such a great effort. There you go. What a job he has done. I have been a bit of a doubter of him, but that is very, very impressive. I'm not going to lie. But there you go. Lando Norris, he was P9 in qualifying 2. If he ends up in P9 again, that'd be very, very good. But now we have 8 of the 10 cars out on track. As we have now 10 minutes left in qualifying 3. Let me know, guys, in the chat before we get times on the board, who is going to get pole. Let me know in the chat and I'll read through some if I can. Also before the final run in Q3. And also, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. because also, not only with the qualifying review, I will be doing a race watch along for 4 hours straight tomorrow morning. So don't forget to subscribe for that. As Lewis Hamilton is about to start his lap. Prussia says Hamilton, BM says Leclerc, Dina says Hamilton, Joshua says Bottas, Mike says a silver arrow, Harry Michael says Hamilton easily. Yeah, you'd have to probably go for a Mercedes and probably Lewis Hamilton, as Lewis Hamilton starts his first run in Q3. Let's see what he does here. What does he have as he goes into turn 1? And oh, look at the speed of that car in turn 1 and 2 as he touched the grass, bouncing all over the place. This is how Formula 1 should be. As he now comes into turn 3, car turns in just fine. And yep, looking good. Turns 4, turn 5 is easy flat in qualifying, not in the race. He breaks down now, 4, 6, and that was good enough as he now heads towards turn number 9. And brakes, car turns in, fantastic. Doesn't touch the wall. By the way, Valtteri Bottas has done a faster first sector. So Bottas looking good. Hamilton goes through turn 11 and 12, probably flat out because of how much grip this car has. Bottas does a faster middle sector. Bottas is on fire. As Hamilton now comes into turn 14. Oh, the turning on that is amazing. And now, oh, bit of understeer in the penultimate corner. Looks good enough in the final corner as Grosjean does a 21.9. And Magnus in a second behind. Lewis Hamilton does a 21 flat. That's basically the same as what he did in Q2. Valtteri Bottas, a 20.5. What a lap by Valtteri Bottas. Half a second faster than Lewis Hamilton. Where has that come from? As Sebastian Vettel has oversteer in the final corner. And Vettel now heads to the line. He's not going to do a good enough lap. No, third, but only, what, 2 tenths down on Bottas. Charles Leclerc goes P4. Grosjean is P5 at the minute. Magnussen is 6th. Norris is 7th. But what a lap by Bottas. A 20.5. Half a second faster than Lewis Hamilton. And Hamilton only had 1 error as Verstappen goes P5. Hamilton only made 1 error that I could see, and that was, and actually 2. Yeah, he went slightly wide at turn 1 and had some understeer in the penultimate corner, but that is not half a second. Wow. That is incredible. As now we have a replay of Max Verstappen trying way too hard and finishing the position where he's going to finish anyway, 5th place. Only 3 tenths ahead of Grosjean though. But right. And let's see a replay of this. So Hamilton, he didn't lose that much time. I think he could go faster through there, but he didn't lose that much time in that part of the track. I've seen worse attempts at turn 1. He did hit the ground with his front wing pretty hard, but yeah, I've seen worse attempts at turn 1. By the way, I'm not going to update the order until the end of Q3 because Kimi Raikkonen and Sergio Perez have not set a lap time yet. So I'll wait till they do, which is probably going to be at the end of the session. But yeah, Bottas on pole from Lewis Hamilton with Sebastian Vettel in 3rd. I bet no one predicted that in testing or after testing had just finished. And not only that, but Bottas to be half a second clear on pole. I'd love to know what Bottas had for breakfast this morning. Wow. 20.5. That is some lap. But now, there are 5 minutes to go. And there is one more chance for Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc to somehow match Valtteri Bottas on a 1 minute 20.5. So don't think that it's over yet because we have seen some absolute stonking laps before at the end of Q3. So don't think that that is unbeatable, because I think Lewis Hamilton definitely has more pace in there. But as we wait, I will now post a picture of Valtteri Bottas on his quick lap, getting very close to the wall at the exit of turn 10. That has to be one of the best laps he's done in Formula 1 in a qualifying session. That was incredible. He's had pole positions, of course, but that was special, what he did there. But can he hold on to that? We'll see. Right, so 4 minutes to go. No one is on track. That's disappointing. Lando Norris is getting out of the car, I think. Is he getting out of the car? No, he's just tightening his belts. I thought he was getting out of the car then. He is currently P8, but only because Raikkonen and Perez have not set a lap. So, here we go. Lewis Hamilton, the world champion, who is looking for his 6th consecutive pole position at this track, heads out behind a Racing Point and a Alfa Romeo, is it? Or is it a Haas? It's a Haas of Kevin Magnussen. Out comes the provisional pole sitter Valtteri Bottas, who is on pole, by the way, by half a second at the moment. The two Ferraris are not on track yet, in 3rd and 4th. 3 minutes to go. They'll want to be getting on the track pretty soon. As still waiting with the two Ferraris, and now here they go. Leclerc comes out into the very tight pit lane, and now here comes Sebastian Vettel into the tight pit lane, and Kimi Raikkonen finally comes out onto the track, and so will, I think, Max Verstappen, because I think Grosjean could go faster than that. But they're now all on their out laps. Now we're going to find out at the very end of Q3 who has the pace and who does not. As I think Verstappen's going to stay in the pits and try and save an extra set of tyres. But if Grosjean goes faster than him, then he's cocked it up. But we'll see what happens. Does Lewis Hamilton have, as Verstappen is coming out, but just needs help getting onto the track because it's a very, very tough pit lane. There's only 2 minutes to go. I think Verstappen, I think Red Bull left it too late. Unless they're just going to tour around out there and see if Grosjean is going faster. I don't know. But does Lewis Hamilton have half a second in him right now? We'll see. If he can get pole, then it just adds to another one of the great things he has done in Formula 1. As now he comes around the final corner. Let's see what the world champion, the 5-time world champion, can do to get on pole. He heads down to turn 1. Will he do it in a better way this time? He goes in, and that's the wrong angle, cameraman. And now goes into turn 3. Now DRS open. Oh, that looks a very, very good car. That Mercedes looks so, so good. How dare I think that the Mercedes was slower than the Ferrari? As it now comes to the end of the first sector, he's half a tenth up on Bottas. And now he comes down into turn 9, makes it fine. Turn 10 is absolutely perfect. And now comes to the end of the second sector, sorry. What does he do? He's half a tenth slower. So Bottas in the middle sector must be absolutely acing turn 9 and 10. As Bottas has done a faster first sector. And a faster middle sector. And Lewis Hamilton, can he do it? Can he get on pole position? He now comes into the final corner. Is Lewis Hamilton going to get his 6th consecutive pole at Melbourne? Yes, he does by a tenth, but Valtteri Bottas is still on a lap. Lando Norris comes across the line and goes 8th. That's very impressive. Valtteri Bottas stays 2nd. So Lewis Hamilton with a new lap record does a 1 minute 20.4. What a lap by Hamilton. He found almost 0.6 of a second. Charles Leclerc stays 4th, doesn't improve on his lap. Sebastian Vettel is not improving, and he finishes in 3rd. A very, very disappointing day for Ferrari. Kimi Raikkonen finishes 9th. That is very disappointing because he's ended up behind Lando Norris, who is in P8. Perez is P10 at the moment. Max Verstappen is improving, but I don't think Verstappen is actually going to go higher than P5. And let's see at the end of this lap. He's still giving everything. Maybe he can get ahead of Leclerc, but I don't think realistically he can. As he comes through the final corner, a bit wide, but let's see where Max Verstappen goes. P4, he outqualifies Leclerc. What a lap, a 21.3 by Max Verstappen. Only a 10th off Vettel. That is a special lap by Max Verstappen. P4. Wow. So Hamilton is on pole, Bottas is 2nd, and then you have a 0.7 of a second gap to Sebastian Vettel. Wow. And then 4th, Max Verstappen. 5th is Charles Leclerc. 6th is Grosjean. 7th is Magnussen. Haas have done the best they possibly could. 8th is Lando Norris. He is undoubtedly the driver of the day for me, is Lando Norris. 9th, Kimi Raikkonen. And 10th is Sergio Perez. Wow. That was a great qualifying session. I don't care what anyone says. I love that. That's exactly what I want to happen in 2019. But, well, what's changed in Formula 1? Mercedes are still getting 1-2s. But let me quickly finish up this order for the final time. Leclerc is 5th. And then you have Romain Grosjean in 6th. Magnussen in 7th. Lando Norris P8. I didn't think that would even be possible. Kimi Raikkonen P9. He'll be disappointed. Alfa Romeo really underperformed. 9th and 14th. And then Perez 10th. Perez also deserves a shout out. Great performance. But there you go. So the grid for tomorrow is Lewis Hamilton on pole from Valtteri Bottas in 2nd. Vettel is 3rd. 4th is Verstappen. 5th, Leclerc. 6th, Grosjean. 7th, Magnussen. 8th, Norris. 9th, Raikkonen. 10th is Perez. 11th is Hülkenberg. 12th is the homeboy Daniel Ricciardo. 13th is Alexander Albon. 14th is Antonio Giovinazzi. 15th is Danny Kvyat. 16th is Lance Stroll. 17th, in a shocking 17th, is Pierre Gasly. 18th is Carlos Sainz. 19th is Russell. And 20th is Robert Kubica. So there you go, guys. That is qualifying for the 2019 Australian Grand Prix. But now, for the next, I don't know, half an hour, let me know in the chat, what did you think of qualifying? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Graham Hobbs, who needs Alonso? Exactly. Jason Davies, Ferrari and Red Bull sandbagging, really. Nib says, I'm thankful we said that Merc could be ahead of Ferrari here, yet we would have been looking very foolish if we said that Ferrari were going to dominate. I'm not surprised that Mercedes are on pole, but I am surprised that they have a 0.7 of a second gap to Ferrari and that they have the front row. And Mercedes are definitely the favourites to win tomorrow's Grand Prix, because if you look at their race pace, it was like a second faster than anyone else. Right, let me just find some more comments from you guys. Matthew Felton says, dang it, Hamilton, I was pulling for Bottas. I would have really loved it if Bottas got pole. And we have to say, after all the criticism he gets, Bottas was great today. To be that close to that driver who is maybe one of the greatest of all time is a great job. He's done fantastic, has Valtteri Bottas. Right, let me now post I think a final picture. This will be the final picture as I come to the end of the stream. I'll be coming to the end of the stream in, say, the next 10-15 minutes. Yeah, react, guys, to what's happened in qualifying. If you want to know what the order is, it's running along the bottom of the screen. That is the order for tomorrow's Grand Prix because qualifying has just ended. So there you go. Lewis Hamilton on screen. He is going to start on pole for the 6th time in a row. He owns this track. It's a fact. He owns this track. This is his track. He is the best driver at this track. No one can compete with him. But maybe tomorrow, if Ferrari can get their act together, maybe Ferrari can compete with Vettel tomorrow. But yeah, that was one hell of a qualifying for Hamilton and Mercedes. Matador, we are 5 tenths down from Ferrari. That is why Lewis Hamilton, and I explained this earlier in the qualifying watch along in the build-up, Mercedes and Ferrari and their drivers deliberately play mind games to make themselves look worse. So if they do lose, they don't look as bad in terms of public perception as they would if they said what their actual pace was. So now, by his quotes, you'd think that Lewis Hamilton is literally God, which he's not. Clearly, the Mercedes had a lot more pace and really does love Albert Park. Nib, who is at the track, says Merc just looked a different beast in 11 and 12. Could take more speed and get the car straightened up perfectly for the exit of 12. The reason that is, it looks like to me the Mercedes is more pointy, if you know what I mean, or it moves around more, which is not necessarily the best thing all the time. But maybe one criticism of the Ferrari is that it's too comfortable. You can't really throw it about and get real speed out of the car. But yeah, the Mercedes to me seems to be a bit more, you know, can turn in and out of corners a lot faster and really, you know, get going out and in and out of a corner better than the Ferrari. The Ferrari looks very comfortable, but again, it almost looks too comfortable. Automate says, I couldn't believe that Bottas was 4 tenths up on Lewis. Great job for Valtteri. I have to say again, Valtteri Bottas has done fantastic today. Will only be a 10th off Lewis Hamilton. Prussia says, please not another season of Mercedes dominance. We'll see what happens in the next 21 races. Matador says, yeah, Vettel looked like he was on a Sunday drive from the shoulder cam, while Hamilton looked like he was wrestling a lion. Now, as I said a minute ago, it's not necessarily a good thing to be doing that with your car, but if you can get it pointing in the right direction and get it working, then you do probably have a very fast car. As you said, it looked like Vettel was on a Sunday drive at times, because I think the Ferrari, even though it's not really, there's nothing really wrong with it, from what I can see, it looks too comfortable to drive. Right. And Automate says now it'll be closer in Bahrain and China. Yeah, it definitely will. This track is one of Mercedes' best tracks on the calendar. So, yeah, make sure that you don't panic if you are a Ferrari fan, because they're not going to do that every Grand Prix. I guarantee you at Bahrain, Ferrari will be a lot closer to Mercedes, because that track is better for Ferrari than this one. But yeah, there you go. Right, for the next 10 minutes, I will read through some comments to see what you guys thought of qualifying. Matthew Felton says, not a Mercedes fan, but feels like watching another silver bullet dynasty like they used to say in the 40s. Here come the Germans. Oh dear. Bastian says, Ferrari was so slow, they need to improve a lot tomorrow. I don't see how they can, unless they get a mega star, I don't really see how they can put up a really good fight to win the race, unless Mercedes have really, really bad tyre wear and general race pace. Yeah, they just seem to be a bit too far off. And look at Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen was P4 and only a 10.5 behind Vettel. And we know on a race day that Red Bull absolutely flies. So who's to say that Max Verstappen won't be third and then you have Hamilton and Bottas first and second? And also, the Honda party mode clearly works because Max Verstappen has split the two Ferraris, and that's something he did not do in qualifying last year. So there you go. Sebastian says Leclerc even got out-qualified by Verstappen. Yeah, not a good day for Ferrari. Not a good day at all. But tomorrow can be better as it was last year, so don't panic. Zunika says or asks, another boring season, you guys think? No, I don't think it will be. You know, look at last season. Very, very exciting. And Hamilton had pole by, was it 0.8 of a second? So, I don't think that it's going to be a boring season. Because, again, last season at the first race, Ferrari were like 0.8 behind in qualifying. But then for Bahrain, they were half a second ahead. You know, this track is very particular. It suits a certain kind of driver and car. So don't panic. Don't panic at all. Arif says Ferrari sucks balls. That's from a Ferrari fan. Adam Ahmed, Ferrari 0.7 of a second behind. Yep. That is very disappointing. I'm sure the Italian media is not going to be happy with Ferrari, considering all of the great press they've had in the lead up to the season. Will F1 says boring Mercedes 1-2 tomorrow. Maybe. We'll see what happens at the start though. That's very important. Remember 2016 where Vettel was third and then jumped up to P1. So don't get too over the top, because we could have an incredible result tomorrow. Max Verstappen could win if crazy things happen. So don't jump the gun. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton is on pole and has also set the lap record at the track, which is a 1:20.486. And I think that is, 7/10 faster than pole last year. So anyone who thought that the 2019 cars were going to be slower, yeah, don't even think that anymore. They were never going to be slower. They were always going to be faster. Let me just take a look. Michael says McLaren top 10 with their new rookie, an amazing feat. For me, Lando Norris, driver of the day. I know Lewis has had pole, but you have to say that Mercedes car is working very well. But Lando Norris, P8 in a McLaren, the first Q3 appearance at Australia since Kevin Magnussen in 2014. Lando Norris is the driver of the day. There's no doubt about it. Right, let me look at a couple more. Sebastian says it will take a miracle for Ferrari to win. Leclerc needs to pass Max off the line. Yet he does. It's not out of the question Ferrari winning. It could happen. I don't think Ferrari have the pace to win, but if they get into pole position, sorry, if they get into the lead at the start, which happened, in 2016 famously, if they do that with Vettel again and can try and control the pace at the front, it could happen. But if Hamilton is leading and Bottas is second and Vettel is third, I don't see how Ferrari can possibly win unless they get lucky, like they did last year. Mike Post, what do you think of Renault? Poor performance, very poor. P11 and P12, not good enough. Not good enough at all. They've been out-qualified by a Renault-powered car, which is not Renault, in Lando Norris for McLaren. They've been out-qualified by a Racing Point, which has been a 2019 car for approximately 2 days, and have been beaten into the dust by Haas, who are a lot smaller of a team. It's been terrible. Renault have been terrible. And also, I want to make this point. I know they've got another YouTube channel, so maybe you could call this, I don't know, YouTuber beef, whatever you call it. Count B Blah makes the point, and it's true. Oh, how much egg is on Autosport's face? Autosport, all winter, were going on and on about how Ferrari was so far ahead of Mercedes. They got such a great car. Now, I thought Ferrari had a faster car, so I will admit I was wrong, but I never said after Mercedes actually brought their proper car into the second test, I never said Ferrari had a car that was half a second faster. They did, I'm pretty sure. I said it was a quarter of a second at most in Ferrari's favour. Now, I am wrong. Mercedes are faster right now. But Autosport thought Ferrari were going to run away with it. And they're 3/4 of a second off. So according to Autosport's predictions, Ferrari are, 1.2 seconds slower than they should be. Which is obviously doesn't make sense because they were never half a second clear of Mercedes anyway. So there you go. That is that's what's called thinking you know for sure what is going on and not actually knowing. I mean, of course, I didn't know that Mercedes were going to do this, but I said plenty of times in the lead up to this Grand Prix, I wouldn't be surprised if Lewis Hamilton got pole. But if you listen to other people, they like Autosport, they'd have you think that Ferrari were definitely going to get pole. Ferrari definitely had the best car. Because of the way this track works, and because of the Mercedes car and how it looked in the fast corners at testing, from what I saw when I was there, I knew they were going to be very, very quick here. And they were. But there you go. Right, I'm going to read out a couple more comments and then I will come to the end of this stream. I just want to let you guys know, though, also, I will be live between 10 AM UK time and 11 AM UK time with the review of qualifying. The review of qualifying will be for about, I don't know, probably an hour. And then, yeah, that'll be it for today. So, yeah, let me take a look at a couple final comments. I'm going to try and pick out the best ones I can. Matador says if Ferrari don't pick it up by Spain, it's over. Let's not jump the gun. Let's not start thinking about the Spanish Grand Prix. Simon Craiglin says, or asks, can you be live earlier today? I can't join, LOL. Unfortunately, no, because the reason I go live that long after a qualifying session is finished is because I need that time to set it up. So, unfortunately, no, I've got to go live between 10 and 11 UK time. Matthew Felton says, I don't think Ferrari is really behind. Quali is not a race. True, but 7/10 is a big gap. And even if you have better race pace than you do qualifying pace, you're not going to claw back that much. David Chimbaza says, Lando Norris is quality. Yes, he was. Mario Master says, it's so cool that all the F2 rookies out-qualified their teammates. It is. It shows that the young drivers are really, really, are good drivers. And the final comment is from Marco, who says, Red Bull was always a lot better in the race. We will see. They are a dark horse for a podium in tomorrow's race. But when it comes to tomorrow's race, I'll get on to what I think is going to happen tomorrow morning when I go live at 4 a.m. UK time. So just to let you guys know, I will be live exactly 1 hour before the race starts tomorrow morning. Yeah, just need to let you guys know that. But hold on a minute, let's just get rid of that. That is, guys, the end of the qualifying watch along. Thank you guys for coming along. It has been great as always. No matter where you're on the world, thank you so much for coming along. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for the qualifying review later on in the morning, if you're in the UK or Europe. So, around lunchtime. And for the race watch along tomorrow morning, don't forget to subscribe for that. And if you have subscribed and you are new, thank you very, very much. And I'll try to bring you as much great content as I can. But yeah, that is it for this stream. Don't forget to subscribe. As I've said, like this video, comment down below what you thought of this video and what did you think of qualifying and what happened. Also, don't forget to join my Discord server, link below in the description. That is the best place to get notifications for my videos. It's right at the bottom. Make sure to click that link and join our server. And yeah, we've got a very, very good community over there. Very interactive. So make sure to join that. Also, if you look in the description, it says ChazzaHD F1 Fantasy League entry code. If you enter that code on the website for the Fantasy League stuff, then you can join my Fantasy League and try and win that. So make sure to do that. And also follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110 and check out my website ChazzaHD.com for more content like this. But guys, until the qualifying review, which is in about 3.5 hours time, and until the race watch along, which is basically this time tomorrow, take back 3 hours. Until then, it has been me, ChazzaHD. Goodbye.